أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
How to write and publish a good quality research paper. Now, the things that we are going to discuss now are they are my own perspective, and this is what I have learned over the years by publishing my own research papers. So, obviously, some of the scholars may disagree with some of the recommendations that I have, but these are the things in general that what I do, or while what are the considerations when I am writing my own research papers. Now, what we'll do is we'll have a general introduction to publishing, how to write and publish good papers, and what should the authors avoid. Now, if you want to publish, have new and original research that advances the knowledge. Now, again, sometimes what we do is we publish models or try to publish models that have been tested elsewhere. Now, those that have been tested elsewhere, obviously, those models or those studies will only be replication studies. So, replication studies, it will be very difficult for you to publish in high quality journal. Now, do not consider to publish results with lack of interest or outdated work. Something that has been researched a lot, maybe you will have difficulty publishing it. For instance, let's say job satisfaction or service quality. If you are, let's say, developing a scale on service quality, well, there are hundreds of scales available. Or for that matter, maybe general or general approach to corporate social responsibility as well. So if you are just trying to test the impact of corporate social responsibility on organizational performance, that work has long been done. You have to debate maybe something new, or maybe come up with some new variables that could intervene in the relationship, or maybe collect data from instead of general employees, maybe from top managers or the executives or the top executives in the organization. Now, duplication of work or replication, obviously, try to avoid publishing those. You need a strong manuscript to present your contribution to the scientific community. Your contribution to the theory, your contribution to the literature, your contribution to that field should be very strong. Moving on. Now, a strong manuscript. What's a strong manuscript? One that has good content, one that is novel, useful, and exciting. One that has good presentation. It is clearly presented and logically constructed. The English is easy to understand. The concepts are easy to understand. They are concrete, comprehensive, and they are well, and they have got literature support with them. Number 3, reviewers and editors are able to grasp the scientific significance easily. Now, you should follow a definite structure for your work, and the reviewers and editors should be able to understand where are the necessary elements, ingredients of the research. Now, contributions shall be definitely or shall be mentioned in the introduction. The implications shall be mentioned in the discussion. Now, if you know where to put all these things in the right manner, you've got a good chance of getting your paper published. Now, gather critical information. You can find exciting topics, most cited, most shared from these websites. Secondly, trends in subject area. Keep informed of advances in the field through journal alerts. Call for papers. Maybe go through Harvard Business Review, Sloan Management Review, or these top quality journals. Look at them, what they are trying to publish, who the top minds in your area, what are they doing, what are they publishing in. Those are the trends. Follow the author guidelines by the journals. If you fail to follow the author guidelines, then it will be hard for you to get your papers published. Look at the journal, look at the impact factor of the journal, look at the journal metrics, look at how recognized these journals are. These are very important things when you are trying to find the right journal for your work. Now, getting a research published or getting a research paper published can be a challenge. Risks that come from submitting a paper to a journal that's not a right fit. Obviously, these days it's take a lot of time to get published. So if you do not do your homework and you just submit your paper, maybe it will take 3 to 4 months before an associate editor looks at your paper. And by that time, you are losing 4 or 5 months. And then if he or she rejects your work, then you will have to go through the whole process again. Now, one tip that I would give you is, now look at the references and see which journal is it that you are citing more than the others. Now that can be a possible avenue for publication. And again, you can use the journal finder tool. You simply need to Google it. Just write journal finder tool and you will find a lot of journal finders where you can put in your title, put in your abstract, and have your it will give you different journals that you can publish in. Now save your editor and reviewers the trouble of guessing what you mean. Now again, it is very important. Sometimes most of us may not be native English speakers, or we are not very good at writing things. So again, we need someone with good English to review our work. Now what that means is that whenever you are writing, try to use or try to focus on how you are writing, and maybe get your paper read by someone who is a good English native speaker, whose English is good. Ask them to review your work, give you comments for improvement. Now here I would recommend one more thing. Sometimes the mistake that we make is we give it to a person who is good in written English or speaking English, or maybe he has got a master's in English. The problem is that he may not be good in research. That particular person may not understand the language of research. Now here you will have to find a person who is relevant to your area so that he knows or she knows what goes in a research paper in that particular area, so that they do not use the words that are alien to that particular field. So again, speaking or English native speaker is important, but one has to try to find a person who is knowledgeable about that field as well. Language, write direct and short sentences, obviously in more that are more professional looking. One idea or piece of information per sentence is sufficient. Now again, sometimes I've personally reviewed or looked at papers where the whole paragraph is one sentence. So the sentence never ends. So again, it's very difficult to create that flow. It's very difficult to grasp what the author is trying to write. Again, a paragraph should be a paragraph and a sentence should be a sentence. So do not confuse your readers. Try to have a sentence that is a sentence. Do not put 10 or 5 or maybe 6 or 4 statements in one sentence. Justify your sentences. Again, for this, what you need to do is understand how English language works. Try to read as much as possible. Now, if you were to ask me one single thing that can get you published, that can improve your ability to write in good quality journals, just one simple thing, I always recommend read as much as possible. The more you read, the more you will be able to write in an improved manner. The more you are able to write, obviously this will get you published. So try to read as much as possible. Moving on. Now, what's the structure of a research? Well, this is a thesis, a thesis. But if you are writing a research paper, let me correct this. If you're writing a research paper, we'll have the abstract, the introduction, literature review, research methodology, data analysis and results, and discussion and conclusion. And discussion and conclusion will have these things. So instead of chapter in a research article, you will have them as sections. and in research thesis these will be chapters. Now, title and abstract. A good title should contain the fewest possible words that adequately describe the contents of a thesis. Theses with short, catchy titles are better. To try to have short, catchy titles. Now, an abstract, tell the readers what you did and important findings. It's like a summary of your whole work. So it has the purpose, it has the design methodology, it has the findings, it has, if you are submitting to Emerald, it will have originality and value, social significance, practical significance or implications. And in case of what it does is it advertises your work as to what is your work all about. It's not more than one page, it is more accurate and specific, and a clear abstract will strongly influence if your work is considered further or not. Moving on. Now, what to include in an abstract, as I have mentioned earlier: rationale or purpose of your study, design methodology, findings, originality and value, implications, social and practical implications. Normally, if you are trying to publish in Emerald, they follow this particular structure, and finally keywords. So, writing an introduction or chapter 1 or section 1. So, you start with the value of the topic in general. So, what's the value of your topic? Why is it important to study this particular topic? Why, if you are focusing on a particular area, you need to write why is it important to study this particular topic in that particular area. What existing research is available in that area on that particular or those particular variables? What relationships have been assessed? What are the gaps in that research? What are the limitations of that research? What relationships have not been assessed? Now, based on all this, you propose your problem statement as to what is it that you are trying to do in that particular research. Now, if you are writing a research thesis, you will write research objectives and research questions. If you are writing a paper, you do not need to separately mention both of these. You then mention the theoretical lens and the contributions of your study. Now, both are very, very important. So you mention the theoretical lens as to what theory you are using to explain the relationship between variables. And then the contributions of the study. What new relationships are you planning to test? How does those new relationship contribute to the theory? And finally, the structure of your thesis or structure of your paper. Both will go in the end of at the end of the introduction. So this is section 1 in case of research paper, chapter 1 in case of a thesis. Now, when you are writing your literature review, you start with the individual or independent discussion on variables. So let's say if I've got a study where my independent variable is internal marketing, my dependent variable is organizational performance, and my mediator is internal service quality. So it's a simple model that I'm planning to assess. So first of all, I will individually or separately discuss internal marketing, then internal service quality, then organizational performance. So what is it that I need to write when I am discussing my variables individually? I start with the concept of the variable. What is it that this variable or this construct means? Moving on, I will discuss the conceptualization in the area. If, let's say, that particular concept has a proper definition in a particular area, and I am focusing on that area as well for my study, I will have that definition in my study. For instance, you can have definitions of concept in higher education. So social responsibility is defined differently in business organizations and higher education institutions. Now, what is it that make this variable important for different organization? How does it facilitate their working? So discuss in general and also specific to your scope of the study, and why studying this concept is important in your field of study. You can again discuss in general, and if it's a predictor variable or if it's a criterion variable, why studying the antecedents is important. So you need to discuss both. Now, again, if you are writing a thesis, then you can obviously focus on the fifth point as well, that what are the different conceptualizations of this concept. Now, if you're writing a research paper, one definition is enough. If you're writing a thesis, maybe you write 3-4 definitions, identify the common traits or common facets or common characteristics on those definitions, and then again which conceptualization you plan to use in your study. And this is true for all the variables when discussed individually. Now, when you are writing the relationships in your literature review, when you're trying to propose the hypothesis, how would you write your hypothesis? Now, these are the things that you need to write. If you fail to write these things, then your literature is not critical. Now, for a critical literature review, you need these things. Has any previous study linked the two concepts or those concepts that you are trying to study? If yes, what were their findings? Do the findings contradict each other or complement each other? Were the findings unanimous, like everyone found a positive relationships, or some found positive while others found negative, while some found significant while others found insignificant? Moving on, why studying the relationships is important? Why studying the linkage between variable in that particular area of study is important? Why studying the relationship in, let's say, higher education is important? And how does the variable influence each other? Why do the variables influence each other? If you are using higher order constructs, you can mention how the traits of one relationship or dimensions of one variable influence the other. And most importantly, what theory are you planning to use, and how do you think that theory will help explain the relationship between those variables? This is very important. Sometimes scholars miss this important point and they do not write as to how or what theory can be used and how it can be used to relate two variables. Let's say, for example, how would I use resource-based view to link corporate social responsibility with organizational performance? So you need to explain these things in your literature. Research methodology. Now these things you need to mention. You need to mention your population, your sample size, your sampling technique, how the questionnaires were distributed, what were the questionnaire sources, from where did you collect the data collection techniques, analysis techniques, and regression model if you're doing a study in finance and economics. You need to explain these things. You need to explain how was the questionnaire distributed, how did you collect the data, what sampling technique did you use, and why you used it. Data analysis and results, again descriptive statistics, measurement model analysis that includes the reliability and validity test, and then hypothesis test when you run your structural model analysis, and if you've got mediation and moderation, that is part of hypothesis testing. Discussion section. Now start with the objective of your study, then compare each of your hypothesis results with existing research. And not just comparison that, okay, yes, my study results were also the same as existing research. No, why were they significant? Why were they insignificant? What theory did you complement, or what theory did the results complement? How the theory helps you explain those relationships that were significant. Did you complement or contradict the findings from the theory? Here, one important point is always try to use the base on which you constructed the whole design. The literature review, you have already got references in the literature review. Try to use the same references in the discussion. This will help you reduce the word count as well, because you will not have to include new references. And again, you are creating an argument based on the earlier arguments. So you will get a more deeper sense of argumentation. You will get a more critical discussion in place. Finally, you will write the conclusion based on the objectives of your study. Limitations, as to what are the limitations in terms of sample, data collection, measurement, analysis. Any conceptual definitions, maybe you used a single dimensional, unidimensional construct. Future studies could use multidimensional constructs. So future research directions, what new relationships can be tested, in what new context they could be tested, what new conceptual scope do you recommend, any new analysis techniques that you recommend. And finally, the implications. Write both practical and theoretical implications of your study. Especially focus on the theoretical implications. Obviously, practical implications are extremely important as well. So, how does or what is the contribution of your results to the theory? Now that you have got the result, theoretical implications means how do your results contribute, or how did they contribute to the theory? What are its implications for the theory? Thank you very much.